asked me, "Mijo, do you know how to drive manual?" And to which I responded, "No, I know, I'm sorry. I rated a Porsche 911 a 3. I did the stupidest shit you could possibly ask for in a single moment of time. I sold my 1976, I don't know if they're gonna vibe with it as much. They're not, nope, they're not vibing with it. The year was 2010. I wanted to be the next Paul Walker, and I started modifying cars, and most of them were shit. They were all really ugly. Most of them were pretty bad, but I figured I would rate them and review them and score them with you today. So you could go back in time with me over the last 25 cars I've owned since I was 16 years old. But I want you to believe in change. Okay, because when you wake up in the morning and you grab your cup of coffee, there's nothing like an inspirational slogan on a coffee cup to make you really want to start the day. And to make this special, what I chose to do is I got over on Discord and I had my Discord channel rate the cars as well. And I told them to be brutally honest, which usually when you tell the internet to be brutally honest, they don't disappoint. So we're jumping in, I'm rating them, then the Discord's rating them. So if you want to join the Discord, the description link's below. Please don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to pick up a t-shirt, you can do that over at AlexMartini.net. That would help me a lot so that we can keep growing this fun little journey of 2023. God, that was bad. All right, first car. All right, 1989 Mercedes Benz 300E. This thing was baby blue. It was beautiful. All right, the inside was dark blue. It had the headrest that popped down but didn't come back up. I love this car. Bought it for $3,000 at an auction. I thought it was nuts. This car was also had a unique license plate of 391 RSW. Now, I'm not scarred, but all I'm saying is I remember my friends saying that the RSW standard for really small wiener. So with that being said, I would rate it a 6. Now, I haven't even seen the Discord rating yet, but I'm gonna rate this thing a 6. I think it's a strong, no, I think it's a 7. It's a first car, and Discord rated it a 5.5. We'll just put that in the C bracket. Okay, I did also have some bikes, I just wanna be clear, but when I wanted to get my first modified car, I wanted a Mitsubishi 3000 GT so bad, because when I finished watching The Fast and the Furious, there was an interlude like video that was like 5 minutes long, and in it he had a 3000 GT. Paul Walker had a 3K. Okay, so I wanted one, and I remember driving to my friend's house for a bonfire one time when I was 16, and there was one on the side of the road for sale. It was this one. It was a 1994 Mitsubishi 3000 GT SL bone stock manual. I bought it. I sold that Mercedes like this. Here's where it gets fun. When I went to pick up the car, my dad came with me because he had to drop me off. Paid the money. It was like $4,200, I think. I literally still have the picture of the sticker price. Gave him $4,200, got in the car. My dad gets in the car to take a look at it. He looks down, he sees the manual transmission, and he literally asked me, "Mijo, do you know how to drive manual?" And to which I responded, "No. Today is how I learned." This was how I learned how to drive manual, by buying a manual car and having no other option. I put some random wheels on it. I called them rims on Facebook. I'm sorry, okay? And I put like steering wheel covers and seat covers, and everything was red on the inside. I had neon lights, I had ground wires. I'm rating this thing a 6. Discord rated it a 7. Nice, all right. Now, there was a period in time, I had that car for probably like a year and a half. I love that car. But I started to make friends with people that also had modified cars. And I had a friend, his name was Adam Rawl. And Adam had a B5 S4 Stage 3. He started kind of getting me into this whole Audi Volkswagen craze. In 2012, I bought this car, a 2001 C5 A6. And this car has the same motor and the same transmission as the B5 S4. I picked this thing up, manual, 2.7T, 103,000 miles for $6,000. I modified it, I put forged blow-off valves on it, I lowered it on ST coils. Of course, I had to go with the classic reps, the VMR 710s. It was iconic in 2012, it's iconic now, okay? The wheels have been there for a decade, people still buy them. So I'm rating this thing, I love this car. If I could just rate it initially, I'm giving it an 8. Discord, on the other hand, I don't know if they're gonna vibe with it as much. They're not vibing with it. So they rated it a 3. What's so ugly about it? It's not that bad. It is a little dated. It's got the smoke taillights. For a while I had RS4 wheels that were like Mistachrome. I also had purple calipers. I think I only remember one variant of this build, and that's why I think it's a 9. We'll bring it down to a 3. I can't believe that's so mean. All right, So then in 2013, I finally decided to grow a pair and I jumped into a car build for the very first time. I had found a Datsun that was over in Chicago that needed a ton of work. It had a little bit of an engine swap done, but it wasn't really running or driving. It wasn't really doing anything that it was supposed to be doing. It was disgusting, it was dirty, it was mangled, it was ugly. This is that car. Because this car's gone through 5 iterations over like the 5 years that I owned it, I have 5 different versions of this car in the rankings because it's important, okay? The first one though was disgustingly ugly. It was this blue-ish looking car. It had this ugly blower on it. I'm rating it a 1 because it just looked like big trash. I think most people would probably agree. It looks like big hunky doo-doo, okay? At the same time though, I ended up picking up another bike. I got a ZX6R, right? No? 600RR, CBR 600RR. Something that's really funny about this is like, as I was starting to like buy and own these cars, a lot of times I used bikes to like flip so that I could go to school and not have any sort of student loan debt. But I like the bike, I'm rating it a 6. Discord didn't have a chance to rate it because I didn't put it in there, so ha! Frig you, buddy. And then I also owned a GY6 Ruckus at the same time. The GY6 Ruckus was awesome. I love this thing. Ruckuses used to be super popular back in like 2015, 2014. I think they still are a little bit, but I don't think they carry the same like wow factor as they used to, because you used to just throw them like behind your car, take them to car shows, you could bomb around in them, and then you put them back in the car and you're right as rain. I had one for 2 years. Tyler, a good friend of mine, Tyler TA, he had one that was super sick as well. And then with the GY6 swap, they were pretty quick. Like this was a single gear, probably 55 mile an hour, lowered, stretched moped that was pretty fucking fast. It was actually a superb vehicle. Putts around on this thing all day. I'm giving this thing an 8. Get out of my face. I had a ZX6R. I sold the 600RR for this one, the ZX6R. Most comfortable bike out of all of them. Out of every single bike I've owned, there's a couple that I've owned that I didn't put in here. The ZX6R still takes the cake as the most comfortable bike I've ever owned in my entire life. I had it for about a year, ended up selling it so that I could trade it for an NB Miata. This one, probably, I'd give a 6. There's a brief period of time. If you wanna know my guilty pleasure, the thing I type in on incognito mode, the thing that I do when nobody else is around, I'll tell you what it is. I look at big-bodied old Mercedes Benz. They're my favorite body style. They're one of my favorite brands, right next to Porsche. This was my 1990 Mercedes Benz 420 SEL. This thing sagged like a motherfucker. I bought it for $2,500 from some random person in Minneapolis, and this guy was ridiculous, where he had his like brother call him pretending to be another buyer while I was trying to buy this car. Stupid sales pitch move, didn't work, whatever. Bought it for $2,500. It was a good winter beater. Nobody liked this car except for me. I'm putting it up there right next to the Ruckus.
What?
This thing was wild. Now in, what would it be? It'd probably be 2013? No. 2014. In 2014, I went back to the European world. I bought a B7 A4. It was a big turbo, had a blow-off valve. It was an Avant. I went down to, I think it was like Carolinas to buy it. I still keep in touch with the previous owner. He's a super nice guy. Bought the car was perfect. It was everything I could have wanted and more. Up here in Wisconsin, having 4 doors, all-wheel drive, and a 4-cylinder turbo is like the perfect thing you can do as a college student, which meant I could fit everything in this car. It was perfect. So I sold it because why would I ever keep anything that was perfect? I love this car probably more than any other car that I've owned. I would rate this one probably an 8. Discord gave it a rating. You guys are assholes. Not happy with the Discord channel. I feel like all of these are pretty damn okay, all right? I feel like a little bit better than a 6. Sold the ZX6R, sold the Ruckus, sold the 420, and sold the B7 A4. In 2015, the next iteration of the Datsun came back, but not without another motorcycle to come along with it. This was when I bought a Ducati 2003 999, or 999. It was a Monoposto, it was a 1-seater. This bike is so either fugly or beautiful. And I've always liked dumb, weird. I've always been a fan of cars and vehicles that are just different. This one has the headlights that are top down instead of like this, they're like top down. And people didn't like it. They thought it was Ducati's ugliest design yet, which meant I fell in love with it. I don't know why. It was my first liter bike. It was awesome. I'm giving it a 9. I don't care what anybody says. Love that bike. It had carbon fiber all over it. I never really knew if it was about to blow up or if it was running just fine because of how it sounded. And then the Datsun came back. Now you have to remember the chat, Discord voted on all the versions of the Datsun. So they had to like pool the votes together. So V2 is only on me. V2, this thing got plasti dip. We fixed the engine. We designed a new hood scoop. We put some fender mirrors on it. We put some Rota Shocotons on it. 225 tires, started cleaning up the engine, cleaning up some of the wiring, some window tint, started cleaning up the interior. And then a friend of mine at the time, his name was Corey, came and actually designed like a mural on the rear fender. It was like the Japan's rising sun and a dragon, and it was on the plasti dip. So it was actually really neat. People loved it. I loved it. I thought it was really cool. It was something that you probably never seen before, but it was definitely a 2015 style build. But I would give this probably a 9. I loved that we did this. Ryan Smallwood helped me with actually plasti dipping the car. We used, oh God, it was a ton. We used like 5-6 gallons, I think, of it to get on there. It was super easy to peel off because we did it the right way, but it still just didn't look that great. So then we sold the Duck. Okay, we sold it, we got rid of it. We didn't want it anymore. It was doing really good, which meant it was time to get rid of it. In 2016, which would have been after selling the B7 as well, I picked up one of my favorite cars ever. One of my favorite cars ever. And that car was a 2004 Mercedes Benz E55 AMG. This car was wickedly cool. Becca and I, we flew out on a whim. We flew out to New York to get it. It was, I remember it was like a Wednesday. I was working at the bank. I was like, Becca, do you want to come with me to pick up this car? She's like, absolutely, yeah, let's do it. So I bought 2 tickets. We flew out on Friday, I think it was, or Saturday morning, got the car and drove back that day. We stopped at Niagara Falls, came back to Wisconsin. It was like my favorite random road trip of all time. But this thing I picked up for would have been $22,000. And then it had niche wheels. It was on lowering links. We got intake, tune, exhaust, TCU, ECU, water meth. It had an E63 front clip. It had LED rears. It was awesome. They'd widened the fender flares so it could fit just a little bit more. This thing was stunning. I love this car. It sounded magnificent. It was an automatic. I did not give a single It sounded so good. Which meant that I kept it for a year and a half and then I sold it. It's going into the 10 bracket. What does Discord say? If Discord disagrees with this perfection of a vehicle, I better see, you know, to the 7 people that voted 7 on my E55, fuck you. You know, there was a period of time where I owned an FB Mazda RX7 that was one owner. It had like 80,000 miles. Then sold that for myself and a buddy, and that was great. That was a really pretty car. Probably should have never sold that, to be honest, but I'd give that one a 7. It was a pain in the ass, didn't have power steering. The interior was red, it was one owner. I think I ended up selling that for like $3 grand. It was the dumbest decision of my life, okay? I understand that sometimes I make mistakes. Now, I also had the next iteration of the Datsun. The next iteration of the Datsun, I partnered with a company called VL, painted it like a gloss pearl white with like a blue like tinge of flake. And when it came back, it was probably in its best condition ever. We had taken the engine out, we had POR 15 everything, the inside, the underside, everywhere in between. We sound deadened the entire rear trunk. We put everything back in. We swapped to a T56 transmission. We had the 355. We had the supercharger cleaned up. We had all the wiring tucked. It was really starting to come together. And then with the new paint, the white and black looked fantastic, okay? This car was really starting to look good. I would give this version of the car probably a 10. This is where the car peaked. Outside of maybe having some different wheels, this car was peaking at this point. Then 2017 came along and things got weird because moved to Appleton, everything was kind of funky, right? Because I'd never moved before. It felt really weird. And in the spring of 2017, the Datsun got its final iteration. It got over fenders. I really didn't like the over fenders when I got it back, but I didn't know that I didn't like the over fenders until I really got it back. I had to put up with it for the sake of putting up with it because you can't really go back once you do it. It had Brinkworth fender flares, but the side fenders couldn't be cut out because they were molded to the car. We went with wider wheels. We went with a Tara Pisangs 18 by 10.5. So we went with wider tires. And for the most part, it was a good looking car. It was decent, but I never got away from feeling like I messed up after I went from narrow body to wide body. I just never really dug the look anymore. I thought that the narrow body looked better personally. And so with that being said, I'm rating it an 8, maybe a 9. I probably rated it a 9. I probably put it ahead of the Plasti Dip Datsun. But narrow body was clearly the win. Everybody on Discord rated it a 10, and I'm happy with that. There's a couple people that rated it an 8, but it was obviously all the same thing. Then I sold my 1976 Datsun 280Z that I had built for the last 5.5 years to buy a Subaru.
It was at this moment.
It's a 0. Okay, by the way, apparently I have to move the Mazda up to a fucking 10 because Discord loves Mazdas. All right, I'm not gonna talk about why. In 2018, I finally was able to jump into one of my first ever dream cars, which was a Porsche Turbo. This one was modified. It had like 600 horsepower. It was lowered on Motons, the good Motons, the fully built Motons. Over time, we had ended up going with some Nitto tires, some Toyo tires. I ended up with Michelin's, I think, at the end. We had a Rohana RF2s on there at one time. We took it on rallies. It was awesome. And I loved it. My wife loved it. Becca loved it. And it was a great car. This thing was so freaking neat. I rated it a 10. Chat also rates it a 10, so I'm happy with that. We're good to go. So much so that the next year, we actually ended up buying 1982 Porsche 911 SC. So that was it's called the G Series. It was before the 964 came out. It was guards red, black leather interior. Actually surprised Becca with it. It was a surprise gift at the time, and I loved this car. It was a good looking car, but the sole problem is that it was a giant pile of shit. I would rate the 82 like a 3 because it just wasn't good for me. I know, I'm sorry. I rated a Porsche 911 a 3. Don't get mad at me, okay? So much so that in 2019, we ended up getting rid of it. 2020 was a wild year for everyone, and while everybody else was freaking out about the market, I decided to double down and I bought all the dumbest shit I possibly could at that time. First things first, we sold the 82, and then we ended up selling the 996 Turbo as well. It had this crazy wrap on it. It looked awesome. Dakota said it had piss-filled headlights, but I love this car. And what we ended up swapping to was Becca ended up picking up a 2018 BMW M4 Competition. It was manual, it was Austin yellow, it's beautifully spec'd, almost maxed out actually. And after Becca picked up the M4, I picked up the 2007 Ferrari F430 that you saw. Now that has also had multiple versions of it, okay? It had the spaghetti red, it was ugly, it was disgusting to look at. We ended up getting it painted at Dreyer's here in town, and we had spent so much time, money, and resources on rebuilding that car. It was a blast. To the people that helped, thank you so much. To the partners and sponsors that helped, thank you. But it was nevertheless still a pain in the ass because this car, I still don't know what I'm doing with the car. Unlike anything else that you can kind of tinker with, it's hard to tinker with 430s. So the M4 has been a fantastic car. I would definitely rate the M4 a 10. It's perfect in every single way. It does everything we want. We take it everywhere. Becca drives that thing everywhere like a madman, mad woman. And the Ferrari, we'll keep that to the end, okay? Because we still have that car now. The last car that I want to talk about that I don't have anymore would be the rebuilt Audi R8 that I had. It was a Gen 2 V10. We put Vorsteiner wing on it. We put variant wheels, Michelin tires, and it was my first real test into HPD, full track driving, and I love this car. Like, when people say everyday supercars are the way to go, everyday supercars are the way to go, okay? This car was literally perfect. I would rate any R8 probably a 10, okay? Now, what we have left, we have the 430 in its final state. It's got new wheels, it's got new tires, it's all dumped, it's on its air suspension, it's on AeroMotion, it's got an AeroMotion wing. This car is gonna see its third iteration this year, where we're going more into a track stance style with the car, at least for a little bit. We partnered with BBS, we have new Michelin tires coming for it. We're probably gonna do some stuff with the suspension just to clean it up to make it a little bit more consistent, but I would give the Ferrari probably an 8.5. And the chat also gave it an 8. Okay, so Discord gave it an 8, I gave it an 8, I'm happy with an 8. All right, so after the 8 on the Ferrari, I have to say, I'm gonna be really honest with you, you gotta go into the Gloria, and we also gotta get into the S2000. So I would rate the Gloria probably an 8. I think the Gloria is awesome, I think it's a great car, I think it's super clean and fresh. Obviously, it's literally just a 4-door Nissan 240 SX. It's got S13 front bits, S14 rear bits, it's got a CD manual swap, it's a little loud, right? But you guys know that. You followed along with that car. It's been wild. It's got the Volt GTCs. We didn't mean to take it all the way down to Gatlinburg, driving it and back because we didn't think we would make it, and we had to. We drove it all the way down, drove it all the way back, never gave us an issue, never gave us any fuss. The car is solid. It's just an old Nissan. I love the car. It's a great cruiser, it's a great homie hauler, and it looks like a Nissan Maxima. Nobody knows what it is if you're not a car person, and still if you're a car person, you really don't know what it is. Just you see the steering wheel, it's on the other side of the car. So I would give that one an 8. All right, which leaves the last one, the Honda S2000. The Honda S2000 is a great car. I've loved this car since I saw it back in 2016 when I shot a video on it. And I still have it now, and I still want to keep driving it and owning it and see what we can turn it into. But I did have to buy the car like a year and a half ago, and I just started driving it again. And at the end of the day, it's still kind of ugly. It's still funky looking. The fenders are still rubbed really badly. Like, it still smells weird on the inside. It's not prettified enough. I would like to give it a little bit more sauce to just kind of, you know, not put makeup on it, but maybe just clean up the pores. Maybe give it a little bit of Mary Kay treatment, because I think we can do that. I would rate the S2K probably a 7, which I think is fair, all right? Don't be mad at me. I know clap cars deserve second chances, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have room for improvement. So now that we have the list done, obviously you have to organize the list. So I went ahead and did that. First things first, Datsun takes the cake as the perfect, bestest car ever made, ever built, and the version prior to the wide body is still my favorite. The Audi R8, second place, awesome car, everyday supercar, best car you could possibly drive. So happy that it gave me the experiences that I did with Road America. I love that car. Then we have Becca's M4 Comp. That thing does everything we could want and more, and it's never given us any fuss. It's a good looking car. The color combo and the package is perfect. We bought it at a great time. Love the car. Then finally, the 996 Turbo, I think, takes the last cake. It was awesome. It was fast. It did have some issues every once in a while, but it was still a fantastic car. Shout out to Brent for pouring 3 times the amount of oil that we needed into the car when we did an oil change. I still love you, but that was crazy scary. Lastly, for some reason, Discord loves Mazda rotaries, so the RX7, the FB, is gonna get last place in the S tier. A tier, already done. The E55 AMG is and still continues to be the best value car you could probably buy. That's rear-wheel drive, powerful, looks sharp, looks awesome, and just is a fun car to drive around. This one was my favorite. It got me into the 600 horsepower range for the very first time. That car was a blast, and if I could go back and still own it, I probably would. The 430, right behind it, love the car. It's in its final iteration. It's finally going a little bit more function-y this year, which I'm really, really excited for, but we'll be driving that a lot more, so hopefully by the end of 2023, that goes into the S tier. The Gloria is after that for obvious reasons. Then the Ruckus. The Ruckus was so many miles per gallon, I just couldn't ever take that away. The Datsun with the wide body fenders is after that, in my opinion. I still like the car, but I think once we went wide with it, I didn't really love it as much as the narrow body personally. I thought the narrow body was the way to go, and if I could get another Z, I'd just keep it narrow body. 420 SEL obviously has to sit above the Duck and the Datsun Plasti Dip. It just does. It was an awesome car. Everybody hated it except for me. It's a perfect car. You can't judge me otherwise. Now, the Ducati 999 was great. I just never knew if it was gonna blow up or if it was perfect because I didn't know anything about the bike, and it sounded constantly like it was gonna explode. If you've owned a Duck or like a dry sump, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It sounds rough. Then we have the Datsun with the Corey Jensen mural on the back. Love the car. Obviously, it's a little time dated nowadays, but it was good. B tier, B7A4 Obvi. I don't know why I said Obvi, please shoot me. Obviously takes the cake. Then the S2000, okay? Then the CBR 600RR, bike has to sit in there. Then the SL, the 94, because that was my first modified car technically. The ZX6R sits in the back of that. It was super comfy, but it was kind of ugly because it was just all white. Then in the C tier, we've got the Audi, the C5 A6. I think you guys are vastly underappreciating the fact that this is just an ugly B5 S4, but that's just me, okay? Then we've got the first car, the old Mercedes Benz 89, and then the SC Porsche 911 because it just never ran. And then in the last tier, we have the first iteration of the Datsun because it was fugly. It was the worst looking car I've ever seen in my life. And then in the last place is the 2008 Subaru STI. The reason that I don't like Subarus is because of this specific car. I should have never bought it. Even when I tried to drive the crap out of it, it was still dog water. So let me know what you would rate it and join the Discord if you haven't. I'm Alex, alex.martini with 2 underscores on Instagram. Feel free to drop a comment. I'll be interacting with you guys below. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you picked up a t-shirt or at least subscribed. I'm Alex. We will see you later. I'm done with this. 40 minutes later. God damn. Peace.